The steam from the shower still clung to the air like a guilty secret when the bathroom door swung open. And there he was, Morris, towel slung low on his hips, eyes wide as saucers, freezing mid-stride. "Holy shit, Holden," he stammered, his voice cracking like thunder in the humid silence. But he didn't bolt. He just stood there, staring at my bare skin as if he'd uncovered a map to a place he'd never dared visit. In that split second, with water dripping from my shoulders onto the cracked tile floor of our cramped Seattle apartment, I felt exposed in ways that had nothing to do with clothes. The raw ache of years unspoken hung between us, thick as the fog rolling in from Puget Sound. I grabbed the towel from the rack, wrapping it around my waist in a frantic twist, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Morris finally blinked, his cheeks flushing that deep crimson I knew from college poker nights when he'd bluff too hard and lose everything. "Dude, I thought you were out running," he muttered, averting his gaze to the fogged-up mirror, but not before I caught the flicker in his eyes. Curiosity? Shock? Something warmer? Unnameable, that made my stomach twist. We laughed it off, of course, the way straight guys do. A forced chuckle, a slap on the shoulder later over cold beers on the fire escape, watching the city lights smear across the rainy dusk. But that night, as I lay in my bed listening to the patter of rain on the window pane, the image of his stare burned behind my eyelids. Morris Hale, my best friend since freshman orientation at the University of Washington, the golden boy with the easy grin and the linebacker build from high school football in Boise, Idaho, straight as the Space Needle's spire. Or so I'd always told myself. It had started innocently enough, that friendship. We met in a dingy dorm lounge, both nursing hangovers from some kegger neither of us remembered clearly, bonding over shared disdain for the pretentious lit majors who quoted Kerouac like it was scripture. Morris was the sun to my shadow. Outgoing, quick with a joke, the kind of guy who could charm a barista into a free pour-over on a whim. I was Holden Reyes, the quiet psych major from a sleepy suburb in Spokane, more comfortable analyzing Freud than flirting at parties. He dragged me to Seahawks games, tailgates in the mud-slicked parking lots of CenturyLink Field, where we'd scream ourselves hoarse under the relentless Pacific Northwest drizzle. In return, I proofread his business papers, the ones dreaming of launching some tech startup that would change the world, man. By senior year, we'd signed a lease on this shoebox apartment in Capitol Hill, a third-floor walk-up with creaky hardwood floors and a view of the evergreen building's neon sign flickering like a faulty heartbeat. Living together blurred the lines in ways I never anticipated. Mornings in the kitchen, him shirtless flipping pancakes, muscles flexing under tanned skin from weekend hikes up in the Cascades. I'd sip my black coffee, pretending to scroll emails while stealing glances that lingered too long. Nights on the couch, binging true crime docs, his arm slung casually over the backrest, fingers inches from my shoulder. I'd feel that pull, magnetic and terrifying, the kind that whispers you're doomed if you ever say it aloud. Because Morris was straight. Girlfriends came and went. Sarah the yoga instructor, with her kale smoothies and sunset yoga flows. Then Jenna from accounting, all sharp suits and sharper wit. I'd play wingman, hyping him up at dive bars like the Rendezvous Jewel Box, clinking glasses to his latest conquest. Inside, it was a slow erosion, like the tide carving cliffs from the Olympic Peninsula's shores. But that bathroom moment cracked something open. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon sizzling, Morris humming some indie folk tune from his phone. Bon Iver, probably his go-to for brooding mornings. He slid a plate across the chipped Formica counter. Eggs sunny side up just how I liked them, avoiding my eyes with exaggerated focus on his own food. "About last night," he started, fork scraping the plate like it was armor. "Weird, right? Like, full-on sitcom shit." I nodded, forcing a grin, but my throat tightened. "Yeah, total wardrobe malfunction. Blame the lock. It's been janky since that storm last winter." We ate in that companionable silence we'd perfected, the radio murmuring NPR segments on the latest Amazon HQ drama downtown. But when he cleared the dishes, his hand brushed mine at the sink, and he didn't pull away immediately. Just a beat too long, his calluses rough from weekend carpentry gigs, sending a jolt up my arm that pooled warm in my chest. Work pulled us in different directions that week. I clocked shifts at the university's counseling center, listening to undergrads unravel their quarter-life tangles. Imposter syndrome, family pressures, the quiet terror of loving someone who might not love you back. Irony, thy name is Holden. Morris dove into his startup grind, pounding away at code in a co-working space in Belltown, fueled by cold brew from that hipster spot on First Avenue. Evenings, we'd reconvene, him venting about venture capital ghosts, me nodding along, offering psych-backed pep talks. But the air hummed now, charged like the static before a thunderstorm over Lake Union. Friday hit like a freight train. Morris burst through the door at 6, rain-soaked and grinning, clutching a six-pack of Manny's Pale Ale. Road trip, Reyes. Pack a bag, we're hitting the coast. I raised an eyebrow from the couch, where I'd been half-heartedly sketching in my journal doodles of abstracted faces that looked suspiciously like his. The coast? It's pouring. He shrugged off his jacket, water pooling at his feet, revealing a thermal Henley clinging to his frame. Exactly. Cabin in Westport. My buddy from Boise lent it out. No signal, no bullshit. Just waves and whiskey. I hesitated, the rational part of me screaming about deadlines, about the vulnerability of isolation. But the pull won out, as it always did with him. Fine. But if we get murdered by fishermen, it's on you. The drive down Highway 101 was a blur of evergreens and gray skies, wipers slapping rhythmically as indie rock crackled from the speakers. Fleet Foxes, their harmonies weaving through the mist. Morris drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tapping the dash, stories tumbling out like he'd been saving them up. That time in college when we skinny dipped in Lake Washington on a dare, the water so cold it stole our breath. The night he confessed his dad's abandonment after the divorce, voice thick over cheap tequila. I shared less, always the listener, but tonight I let slip fragments. The weight of being the sensitive son in a house of stoic loggers, the first boy who broke my heart in high school woodshop. He glanced over, profile sharp against the passing pines. You never talk about that stuff, Hold. Why? I shrugged, watching rain streak the window. Figured you had enough straight guy drama without my gay confessional. Westport welcomed us with salt air and the distant crash of waves against the jetty. The cabin was a weathered A-frame, all knotty pine and propane stove, perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific. We unloaded groceries. Steaks, Esmores fixings, a bottle of bourbon Morris swore by, and by dusk, fire crackling in the stone hearth, we were sprawled on threadbare rugs, stories flowing freer than the tide. The awkwardness from the bathroom lingered, though bubbling up in sidelong glances, in the way his knee brushed mine when he laughed too hard. Remember that party at Capasig? He said, passing the bottle, his fingers grazing my knuckles. You ditched me for that artist guy. What was his name, Theo? I took a swig, the burn steadying me. Yeah, Theo. Epic mistake. He ghosted after one bad poetry reading. Morris's eyes held mine a second too long. His loss. You're solid, man. Always have been. Sleep came fitful that night, the ocean's roar a lullaby laced with unrest. I woke to moonlight slicing through the salt-stiff curtains, Morris's silhouette in the doorway. Can't sleep, he murmured, padding in wearing just boxers, the fire's embers casting shadows across his chest. He dropped onto the edge of my bed, close enough that I could smell his soap, cedar and sea salt. Mind if I crash here? Couch is lumpy as hell. My pulse thrummed. Sure. He stretched out, back to me, but in the dark, his hand found mine under the quilt, a tentative clasp that neither of us acknowledged. We lay there, breaths sinking with the waves, and for the first time, the line I'd drawn in my mind blurred into something perilously soft. Morning brought fog thick as unspoken words, but we shook it off with black coffee on the porch, watching gulls wheel over the gray expanse. Morris suggested a hike down to the beach, and we trudged the muddy trail, boots sinking into the loam, conversation meandering from startup fears to the ache of roots pulling you back to places that no longer fit. At the tide pools, he crouched to poke at a starfish, grinning up at me like we were kids. Life's weird, huh? One wrong step and you're exposed. The double meaning hung, but I let it pass, skipping stones across the foam-flecked water. That afternoon, we grilled steaks on a rusty Weber, the sizzle mingling with Bob Dylan crooning from a Bluetooth speaker. Tipsy on bourbon, Morris grew quiet, staring into the flames. You ever wonder, what if? He asked, voice low. What if we'd met different? Or, I don't know. I froze, fork midway to my mouth. What if what? He met my gaze, something raw flickering there. Nothing. Forget it. But I couldn't. Back inside, as rain lashed the windows, he pulled me into a hug. Goodbye? Good night. His arms strong around me, chin resting on my shoulder. Thanks for coming, Hold. Means a lot. I nodded into his neck, inhaling him, the dam inside me cracking. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine, and then, impossibly, his lips brushed my cheek. Not quite a kiss, but close enough to ignite. He retreated to his room, door clicking shut, leaving me reeling in the living room, heart a storm-tossed boat. The drive home Sunday was quieter, the radio filling the spaces we left empty. Seattle's skyline emerged from the clouds like a promise, but inside the car, tension coiled tight. Dropped at the apartment, Morris clapped my shoulder. Talk soon. I nodded, watching him drive off toward his co-work space, taillights fading into the drizzle. Alone, I collapsed on the couch, the weight of that almost kiss pressing down. Was it real, or just bourbon and isolation playing tricks? My phone buzzed. A text from him. Missed the exit. Thinking about the beach. I typed back, me too, but deleted it, sending a thumbs up instead. Safe. Always safe. Days blurred into routine, but the undercurrent pulled stronger. At work, a client mirrored my turmoil. A man grappling with feelings for his roommate, the terror of ruining everything. What if it's not reciprocated? He asked, voice breaking. I had no answers, only echoes of my own fears. Evenings, Morris and I orbited each other, dinner takeout from that Thai place on Broadway, movie nights where his proximity felt electric. One night, post The Last of Us episode, he paused the TV, turning to me with that earnest look. Holden, about Westport. My breath caught. Yeah. He rubbed his neck, classic Morris tell for discomfort. I felt something. Weird, right? But good weird. The room spun. Morris, if you're saying. He cut me off with a laugh. But it was nervous. Nah, just, you're my guy, best friend. Don't wanna fuck that up. Relief and devastation crashed together. I forced a smile. Wouldn't dream of it. But dreams had other plans. That night, I woke sweating from one where his hands roamed freely. His mouth claiming mine under starless skies. Guilt followed, sharp as shattered glass. Morris deserved better than my unspoken obsession. I threw myself into distractions. Volunteering at the local LGBTQ center in Capitol Hill, facilitating groups for queer youth navigating coming out in conservative pockets of the state. Their stories, rejections, small victories, mirrored my own buried narrative. One kid, Alex, reminded me of 18-year-old me. Wide-eyed, sketching in corners, afraid to voice the truth. 2 weeks post-Westport, crisis hit. Morris texted at dawn. Need you. Bar. Now. I found him at the Lionhead, nursing a whiskey neat, eyes red-rimmed. Jenna's back, he said without preamble. Wants to try again. Dinner tomorrow. The words landed like a gut punch. Jenna. Polished, uncomplicated. The girl who'd fit seamlessly into his Boise roots. I slid onto the stool beside him, signaling for a beer. That's great, man. She seemed solid. He downed his drink, signaling for another. Is she? Feels off now, like I'm forcing it. I swallowed hard, the bar's jukebox crooning Springsteen, ghosts in the neon glow. Then don't force it. Life's too short. He turned, gaze intense. What would you do, if it was you? Honesty clawed up my throat. I chase what scares me, the real thing. He held my eyes, the air thick. Yeah, maybe. Dinner with Jenna became a group thing, her idea to keep it light. We met at a farm-to-table spot in Fremont, under Edison bulbs and exposed brick, the menu boasting heirloom tomatoes and grass-fed everything. She was radiant in a sundress, laughing at Morris's jokes, her hand on his arm. I played the third wheel, charming when required, but inside, jealousy gnawed like rust on rebar. As plates cleared, she excused herself to the restroom, and Morris leaned in. This feels wrong, he whispered. Tell me I'm crazy. I gripped my water glass. You're not, but talk to her. He nodded, but when she returned, sliding her hand into his, something in his posture shifted, resigned, armored. The fallout came fast. By week's end, they were official again, Instagram posts of brunch dates at Le Panier, her tagging him in stories from Pike Place Market. I congratulated him over text, then ghosted our hangouts, claiming overtime at the center. Truth was, I couldn't watch it unfold. the slow suffocation of what might have been. Nights alone, I wandered Capitol Hill streets, past rainbow flags fluttering in the breeze, dive bars pulsing with laughter I didn't join. One evening, at a poetry slam in a basement venue off Pine Street, I spilled fragments onto the mic. Verses about doorways ajar, skins bared in steam, loves glimpsed but ungraspable. The crowd snapped approval, but it felt hollow, applause echoing my isolation. Morris noticed the distance. He showed up at my office unannounced, leaning in the doorway with takeout from Dick's Drive-In, burgers dripping grease. Hiding from me, Reyes? His tone was light, but eyes searched. I waved him to a chair, the room smelling of stale coffee and old case files. Busy. You know how it is. He unpacked the bag, handing me fries. Jenna's great, but it's not clicking. Like wearing someone else's shoes. My heart stuttered. Then kick him off. He paused, ketchup packet twisting in his fingers. What if the fit I want isn't there? The question hung, loaded. I leaned forward. Then you look harder. Or, accept it might be closer than you think. Our knees bumped under the desk, neither pulling away. He left with a hug that lingered, his breath warm against my ear. Missed this. Us. That vulnerability cracked the floodgates. Late-night calls followed, him pacing his room while Jenna slept on the couch after movie nights, confessing doubts that veered perilously close to truth. I keep thinking about that hug in Westport, he'd say, voice husky. Felt right. Real. I'd murmur agreements, my own confessions bubbling. How his laugh lit rooms, how I'd memorized the freckles across his nose from childhood summers. One call stretched past midnight, rain hammering the roof like applause. Holden, he breathed. What are we doing? I closed my eyes, the line between us thrumming. Falling, maybe, without a net. The breaking point arrived on a crisp October Saturday, leaves turning gold along the Burke-Gilman Trail. Morris texted, park. Bench by the locks. Urgent. I biked over, wind whipping my jacket, arriving to find him hunched, staring at salmon leaping the fish ladder, their silver bodies arcs of determination. Broke it off with Jenna, he said as I sat, no preamble. Relief flooded me, chased by terror. Why? He turned, eyes stormy. Because it's you. Has been, I think. That bathroom thing? Westport? It's not just friendship. Not for me. The world tilted. Morris. He cupped my face, thumb tracing my jaw. Say it, please. I did, words tumbling. The years of quiet longing, the fear of losing him. His kiss was tentative at first, then fierce, tasting of salt and certainty, the Ballard locks churning below like our upended lives. We tumbled into new rhythms, cautious at first, stolen touches in the kitchen. Nights tangled on the couch under Afghans knitted by his Boise grandma. Seattle embraced us. Walks hand in hand through Discovery Park's forests, where ferns whispered approvals. Brunches at Cafe Flora, vegan pancakes and mimosas, his foot hooked around my ankle under the table. But shadows loomed. His family, staunch Methodists from Idaho, Dad a retired rancher who'd never uttered gay without a grimace. My own folks, distant but kind, had accepted my coming out in college with awkward hugs. But this, entwining with their golden boy, the first fracture came at Thanksgiving. Morris flew home alone, insisting on easing them in. He returned hollow-eyed, recounting the dinner. Mom's turkey dry as regret, Dad's pointed questions about that phase over pumpkin pie. They think it's a rebellion, he said, unpacking in our living room, suitcase spilling flannel shirts. I pulled him close. Give it time. But doubt seeded, sprouting in quiet moments. His hesitation at holding hands in Pioneer Square, the way he'd flinch at double takes from burly loggers at the market. Winter deepened, rains relentless, mirroring our internal squalls. Morris threw himself into the startup, pitches to investors in sleek Pioneer Square lofts, while I mediated couples therapy sessions that echoed our strains. One night after a failed demo, code crashing spectacularly, he lashed out over stir-fry. This isn't me, Holden. Hiding? Pretending at work. I bristled. You're the one who said ease in. The argument escalated. Words like shrapnel. My pushing too fast. His fear of losing everything. He stormed out into the downpour, door slamming like finality. He didn't come back that night. Texts went unread, calls to voicemail. Panic clawed me. Visions of car wrecks on I-5 or worse, him unraveling alone in some Belltown motel. Dawn brought him, soaked and shivering, key turning slow. "I'm sorry," he choked, collapsing into my arms. We made love then, desperate and reclaiming, bodies mapping apologies on sweat-damp sheets. But the rift lingered, a hairline fracture widening. Betrayal struck in spring, insidious as cherry blossoms shedding petals on California Anderson Park. Morris's old college buddy, Tyler from Boise, blew into town for a tech conference. Tall, blonde, with that easy bro charm and a history of blurring lines at frat parties. They reconnected over IPAs at Elysian Brewing, Tyler slapping Morris's back, reminiscing about wild times. I met them there, playing the supportive boyfriend, but Tyler's eyes lingered on Morris, touches casual but charged. "You too? Cute," he drawled, winking. Morris laughed it off, but unease coiled in my gut. It escalated at a house party in Queen and, hosted by Morris's co-founder, a sprawling Victorian crammed with startup bros and their dates, bass thumping from hidden speakers. Tyler cornered Morris in the kitchen, backs to the island, heads close over solo cups. I watched from the doorway, heart sinking as Tyler's hand gripped Morris's forearm, leaning in with that predatory grin. Morris pulled away, but not before a laugh escaped. Nervous, complicit. Later, in the bathroom line, Tyler sidled up to me. "He's confused, man. Always was. Back in Boise, he'd hook up after too many shots, then swear it off. You'll get tired of playing therapist." Venom in his smile. I brushed it off, but seeds of doubt took root. The confrontation came post-party, Morris buzzed and defensive on our fire escape, city lights winking below. "Tyler's full of shit," he insisted, cigarette dangling from lips, a habit resurrected from stress. "Just old stories." I paced the iron grating. "Stories? Or regrets?" He stubbed the smoke, eyes flashing. "What do you want me to say? That I'm still figuring it out? That loving you scares the hell out of me because it means dismantling everything?" The words gutted me. "Then why string me along?" He grabbed my shirt. "Because I do love you, idiot. But yeah, part of me wants the easy out, the straight life, the approval." Betrayal burned, hot and clarifying. "Go find it, then." I walked inside, door locking with a finality that echoed. He left that night, crashing at Tyler's hotel to think. Days stretched into a void. My shifts mechanical, clients' pains distant echoes. Friends rallied. Brunch at Oddfellows with my LGBTQ group pals. Sage advice over lattes. He's projecting his fear onto you. But grief hollowed me. Walks along the waterfront turning to dirges. Ferries to Bainbridge chugging past like indifferent hearts. The crisis peaked on a rare sun-drenched afternoon in June, Morris's birthday. I debated ignoring it, but masochism won. I texted, "Happy birthday. Hope it's good." His reply, "Meet me at the Needle." Top. Heart pounding, I ascended, elevator humming ascent, emerging to the observation deck's panoramic sprawl. Elliott Bay glittering, Mount Rainier a distant sentinel. He waited by the rail, wind tousling his hair, looking smaller against the vastness. "I fucked up," he said, voice carried away. "Tyler's a ghost." Pushed me toward what I hate about myself. Tears welled. I ended it with him, with the lies. "But you. I can't lose you." I stepped closer, the city a mosaic below. "You almost did. Trust isn't a switch, Morris." He nodded, taking my hand. "Then teach me." Again. Healing unfolded in fragments, deliberate and tender. We started slow. Coffee dates at Victrola. No expectations, just presence. Therapy sessions together, my counselor colleague facilitating, unpacking his internalized shame, my walls of self-protection. Summers brought road trips to the San Juans, kayaking Orcas Island's coves, where seals bobbed like buoyant truths. He came out to his mom over FaceTime, her Boise kitchen backdrop, voice steady. "He's the one, Mom. For real." Her paws stretched, then, "If he makes you happy, son." Not full embrace, but a door ajar. Fall returned, leaves carpeting Gasworks Park, where we picnicked with craft beers and charcuterie, his head in my lap as kites danced overhead. The startup launched, an app for mental health check-ins, ironic and fitting. Investors biting after a pitch where he credited my partner for the vision. Publicly, we navigated. His hand in mine at Pride's Rainbow River down 4th Avenue. Cheers washing over us like absolution. Yet depth came in shadows. One winter eve, snow blanketing Capitol Hill, a rarity, he confessed over mulled wine by our tree. Sometimes I wake up terrified you'll leave, that I'm not enough. I kissed his temple. We're enough together. Flaws and all. Humaneness bloomed there, in the ordinary. Grocery runs to Metropolitan Market, arguments over thermostat wars, lazy Sundays with parks and rec marathons, his laughter my anchor. By spring's thaw, we'd woven a life resilient as Seattle's evergreens. Morris's family visited. Awkward barbecue on our patio. Dad's gruff handshake evolving to questions about my line of work. Progress, not perfection. We hiked Rattlesnake Ledge at dawn. Summit views unfolding like futures. Vast, uncertain, beautiful. In the end, it wasn't a fairy tale. No grand gestures, just quiet revolutions. Love, we learned, is the courage to stand naked, not just in steam-filled rooms, but in the unrelenting light of day. And in that vulnerability, everything truly changed.